Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm John Brower. I'm the Workforce and Economic Development Program Director at the State Labor Federation. My boss, Art Pulaski, who you heard this morning, views the role of the WED program, as it's called, as another means basically for building labor power and union power in the state of California. Our job at WED is to essentially resource our affiliates, their signatory employers, and help build partnerships with community-based organizations, community colleges, high schools, public agencies, and others to build and implement labor management, high-road training partnerships and apprenticeships. So today, we got a great panel. I will say, first of all, there are 3 IBEW folks here and 1 ATU folks. IBEW is doing a lot of great stuff in a couple of different sectors, and Bernie, who you also hear from in that end, went to the same high school as my kids, so we let Bernie on for that reason alone out of it. But we want to today kind of let them talk to you about what they're up to in training and apprenticeship, and focusing on sort of the intersection of what they're trying to do to meet changing technology needs, particularly as they relate to greenhouse gas reduction, but also changes in technology, and then also, as equally important, issues around trying to provide greater access and equity for the communities that are part of their unions and where they're from in those particular pieces. So let me get into it, and I'm going to introduce them all, and then I've got some questions to ask them to go through, and we'll probably have the opportunity maybe at the end for about 20-25 minutes worth of questions for folks, if that's all right. So hang on to your questions, and they didn't give us cards, so just hang on to them and we'll be raising hands. First person I want to introduce you to is somebody actually I've been doing a lot of work with over the last couple of years, Jermaine Gibson. And Jermaine is with the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 265 that represents the Santa Clara Valley Transit Authority. He's been there since 2011. Prior to that, Jermaine was at the NUMMI plant down in Fremont for over a decade, and when that plant closed, moved over, made the transition to a whole new career. He joined VTA as a coach operator, where he participated in and now is one of the co-directors for the Joint Workforce Investment Program there, and he'll talk to you guys about what that program involves. He became a mentor for new employees, and 7 years later, he's now helping to do that. And that mentor program that the ATU, basically 265 runs there, has evolved into an apprenticeship program in a number of different occupations. At 4 different occupations at the Transit Authority, and has enrolled in the last year, 200 new apprentices, bus coach operator, and a couple of other occupations there. And I'll have Jermaine tell you about the exciting work that those guys have been doing and how they're helping us work with other ATU locals, basically propel that forward to a partnership of labor management training partnerships around the state between ATU and transit agencies as they deal with the transition around carbon reduction. Sitting next to him is Bernie Kotlier, and Bernie is the Executive Director of Sustainable Energy Solutions for the California Labor Management Cooperation Committee. I know it as LMCC. So it's a joint effort of the National Electrical Contractors Association, NECA, and IBEW. In California and in Nevada. He directs the development, promotion, and delivery of sustainable energy business development programs, education and training for IBEW electricians and electrical contractors who are members of NECA in California and Nevada. And it includes in a number of different areas related to today, including energy auditing, energy efficiency, photovoltaics, zero net energy buildings, electric vehicles, energy storage, and microgrids. And Bernie, I think you'll learn a lot today about how labor can use setting standards for industry as a way to grow and maintain market share for labor and its signatory employers. So I'm glad that he's here. Third person to my right here is Sean McLeod. Sean is Assistant Business Manager to IBEW Workers Local 18. They represent members in the union's clerical, professional, supervisorial, technical, and business administrative units of the LA Department of Water and Power. down there. Embracing the joint labor management concept, Sean was tasked with implementing the Utility Pre-Craft Training Program, or UPCT, and working with, under the leadership of Local 18, as business manager Brian D'Arcy. Sean was the leading labor force behind execution of the UPCT program. She's been a mentor, advocate, and architect of the program since its inception in 2011. And UPCT program has become a model for coupling green investments with career path jobs for disadvantaged communities. And I think there's a lot to learn even beyond sort of the inside wireman and that aspect of IBW, particularly for utilities, because we see it here in the Bay Area. We've got an aging workforce and an opportunity really to diversify that workforce, that this is a model program. So thanks, Sean, for coming. And then John Harriel, is that how we pronounce your last name, John? Is that good? Okay. Otherwise known as Big John. Clearly, I'm never going to get called that. Is a project superintendent for Morrow Meadows Corporation. He's been with IBW Local 11, as well as employed at Morrow Meadows for 21 years. In 2003, John graduated the apprenticeship program as its valedictorian with perfect attendance. He's also a facilitator and board member of Second Call, a nonprofit organization that specializes in reentry and getting proven risk individuals into careers in South Los Angeles area and surrounding communities. And again, Local 11 has done a fantastic job of trying to create pathways into the local down there, and a very strong building trades, part of a very strong building and construction trades movement that's built on both accessing work but also equity and access into those jobs. So kind of jumping in. Come on in. First question is, for each of you, your unions and the employers that you represent are facing challenges and transformation due to climate change and other factors affecting your sectors and the industries that you represent. What's unique about the role that labor plays in skills building and workforce training in your sectors and industries? G, you want to start?
I want to go?
Okay.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Tell everybody a little bit too more beyond what I said, if you want, about just sort of 265 and the Transit Authority too.
I'm going to try, so I'm going to let you know now. I'm super nervous. I do really well in one-on-ones, but people looking at me, it's completely different. So I'm one of the Joint Workforce Investment Coordinators down in VTA. It is a joint labor management program between the agency and the local. And what we do is we have 4 different apprenticeships that John mentioned. One is a coach operator apprenticeship. Another one is we teach service workers how to become mechanics. We teach, our third one is where we take people who clean platforms and teach them how to work on light rail tracks. And our fourth one is we teach people how to deal with the overhead line or the power for trains. For us in transit, it's completely new to have labor be involved in the training of employees in transit. I know the building trades has had it for years, but for transit, it's completely new to have a person like me, because I still drive, have a say-so in the work that I'm doing, or have a say-so in the training of the work that I'm going to be doing. I think it carries a lot more weight, especially when you have a new operator or someone coming into a union to be trained by a union member. And for whatever reason, that hasn't always been the tradition for transit. So for us, I guess that's unique to have, like I said, labor be part of the training of other labor members. So.
Okay, and you all should know ATU is, obviously it's a public sector union, so they're responding to Janus up and down the state in part of the consideration. Bernie?
So the well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. It's great that the room is filled, and also thank the Labor Center for putting on a great conference, and our trustees at the Labor Management Cooperation Committee, because it's their vision and support that's made all this work possible for us in IBW and NECA. Our challenge with all of this sustainable energy work really goes back to something before I think sustainable energy was maybe the issue, and it goes back to really a question of preparing for high technology and new industries. I started doing this job 11 years ago for the LA LPCC before I moved to statewide. And at that time, we were sort of behind the 8 ball on solar. I don't know, those of you outside of California, maybe that seems silly, that in 2007 we were already behind the 8 ball, but in California we were. And so I was originally hired, because I was in the solar industry at the time, to help Local 11 and LA NECA get our members up to speed on solar and start chasing a train that had left the station. But really what we found is that initially it wasn't just a question of sustainable energy, it was a question of preparing for new technology. And I'll get to the sustainable part later on. I think we in the labor movement, especially I can speak for our electrical contractors who are members of NECA and our members of the IBW, have had a challenge. And that is that when new industries are developing and new technologies are coming, new skills are required, we generally haven't been out front. We've generally said, and a lot of our members, I can quote them, have said, well, we'll train for that when it gets here. When the jobs are here, we'll do it. Jobs aren't here yet, we're not going to waste our time, we're not going to spend our money. And we saw that roll out in very unfortunate terms in the 80s and the 90s. The first example we like to use is telecom, where a lot of our members considered low voltage, quote unquote, sissy work. And that's a quote. And there are a lot of others that I can't repeat here. We really didn't pay attention to that low voltage work. And today, it's barely a part of our electrical trade. We've been chasing that train that long left the station for many, many years. And the people who do it are primarily non-union. They call themselves the fourth trade after mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the fourth in construction trade within the facilities. They have their own organizations, and we have some of the work, but a very small market share, because we weren't there when it started, we weren't there as it was growing, we came in very, very late. The second example of this, unfortunate example, was the solar industry. Once again in California, not so much in other parts of the country where it developed later, but in California, solar started developing very early in the 90s. And once again, our members were derisive. They laughed at it. They called it a bunch of hippies in VW buses and shimmying up drain pipes. And they literally laughed at the solar guys, and we ignored it. And pretty soon those little solar guys got big, and they became a real threat to us. And that's when we started taking it seriously. So everything that we've done since I've been involved in 2007, the last 11 years, has been I think, as a reaction, and using those bad examples as a way to prepare for the future. And I'll leave the rest of my comments to next round.
Okay.
We started at Local 18, where the city of LA had a grant, and actually they didn't know what to do with the grant. It was money that was given away, and they had excellent grant writers, so they gave it to the Department of Water and Power. And Brian, my boss, was working on, we had an aging workforce, we had a large membership. One of the things that we found out, especially in the line series, is that the kids were not following their parents' footsteps. They were either doing techie or doing something else, and we were going to have a big gap. And so he wanted to go into the communities to tell the community. And the other thing we had at the LA Unified School District for budget cuts is that they did not have shop classes anymore. So most of the kids didn't know what to do with a hammer or a tool or any of that kind of stuff. They can get you navigate through the techie stuff, but everything else, they couldn't. So it was a big gap. So that's how the birth of our program came, is the utility pre-craft. We went, and how we opened the books is that they signed the books at the Union Hall. But we didn't tell, even though all of our members, and we had a lot of flack, we did not even tell our membership about it. We went out to the communities. We have community partners, and Lane is one of our biggest ones. And we talked about, we were listening, we're going out to the community, and they wanted to be able to have access to jobs at this big company they call DWP, because none of them in the community had hope that they would ever get a job. So we put the word out, we built allies with the community partners, and we put the word out when the books were going to open. I can tell you the day before the book was going to open, we had a line that was about 6 blocks. People got in line and stood over like night to sign the books. And the majority of the people that signed those books on that first day, they have jobs. They are in the process. So the whole goal is to give, you don't have to have any experience, because we knew that we had to teach it, because they weren't getting any experience out there. It's a free apprenticeship program. You get paid $16 an hour, health and welfare benefits, and we will train you. All you have to do is be at an 8th grade level, and when you sign the books, we show you how to get to an 8th grade level. If you're not, we give them websites and stuff that they can practice and get them to, so they can get there. If you have that and you're breathing, we can do the rest. Everything is signing them on, and all they have to do is re-sign until we start dispatching and come out. So we wanted them to show that we have skin in the game. But going out to the community and having those community partners out there was the biggest thing. I can tell you, even as big as the utility is with water and power, a lot of them had not gone. And that was one of the biggest things out there, is that we always have to come to them, they don't come to us. So we're in backyard. So that whole process that we're doing, and we're getting into it and more. So the grant was to go and make houses more energy efficient. So they do the windows, go inside, do the duct blowers, and those are the jobs that we started off with when we jumped off our program, the utility recraft training. So that was the beginning, and then we'll talk more later of where we are now.
I forgot the question. What was the question?
So what is unique about the role that labor plays in skill building and workforce training in your sectors and industries?
Oh, what was the labor, what kind of role it played? For me in my community, it was important, but unfortunately in my community, they're not taught about the trades. So growing up in my community, which I live in South Central, most young men and women grow up having fantasies about playing pro sports or some weird stuff like that, or like me, I fantasize about going to prison because there was nobody in the community that was doing things that added multipliers. Everybody was subtracting and dividing, and to me, it's like anything, association break affiliation. You know, I never saw no lions hanging with hyenas. Lions hang with lions, hyenas hang with hyenas. So in my community, it was gang members and murderers and things of that nature, and law enforcement. Law enforcement looked at it as the enemy. School was not promoted. Going to the penitentiary was applauded. So therefore, I realized, now you guys heard him say I was perfect attendance and all that nonsense right there, but I dropped out of school in 9th grade, right? So my education stopped at the 9th grade because I was doing things that was counterproductive against a citizen in the community when I understand what that means. So when I went to prison, I had to go to work every day in there. So I took those skills and brought them out. And fortunately for me, and the reason why I do what I do in the community is because IBEW saved my life. And so now, one of the things I hear everybody talk about, pre-apprenticeship, careers, and all this great stuff, but at the end of the day, in my community, if no one understands the life skills, all that shit is mute. So if I got low self-esteem, I don't love myself, and I got anger issues, how the hell am I even be a part of any of this? So once I understood it, the first thing I did was went back in my community, because I still now own in my community instead of renting. So I took some of my guys who had the same mentality I had, and once they understood the change of the thought process, it was the labor movement that created an opportunity for individuals to pick up tape measures instead of guns. And so now they're buying homes instead of doing home invasion. And I'm not talking about, in my letter, it said proven risk. I don't deal with victims. I deal with suspects. Because I know that the suspects are the ones who the murder rate will go from here to here because now I love myself. And that has to be taught. So every week, I'll sit in a room, and it's probably double the size of individuals where it might be anywhere from 10 to 700 years of prison time. But now they all working in careers, not jobs. Because in my brain, a job is setting them up for failure. Because the job has no benefits, it has nothing to go look forward to. So if I'm gonna tell a young man to stop gang banging and picking up guns and this and that, I gotta transform into something to where I can take that same energy with the right mindset and understand I love myself and go out there and be a productive citizen and not leave the community. Because right now, what's going on in our community, talk about housing and all that, we're being displaced. And we ain't being displaced because somebody taking it. We have absolutely relinquished power because of lack of knowledge of self of what's going on around us. So if I'm living in a household and no one is talking about a mortgage, life insurance, living trust, those are terms. Granny dies. No one knows where to pay to know that. There's a thing called probate. And if I'm just selling drugs all my life and I have no credit score, guess who comes to get my house? Right? So then when I say, hey, they taking my house, no, they didn't take it, you relinquish it because I have like a what's going on. So now that I own my community and I didn't lead a community, we educate and empower. Because I think some people in the labor movement, what I appreciate about the IBW and what Bernie and Jim and Marvin all them did, they got out their comfort zone. See, I think too many people get comfortable. So it's easy to go to the hall and everybody, when I get to the hall, I deal with you there. But go where you think nobody looks like me. I went into the brown community where I know in the prison you'll try to kill me and I'll try to kill you. And we sat at a table and I said, whatever you think of me, let's get it out right now. And I'll tell you what I think of you and then let's move forward. So now on the weekends, in my community and in the brown community, that's 99.9%, we do math to help the young men and women because they can't leave their community, might get killed. So we teach them the math. And then we teach them how to sit down and have a conversation with someone that doesn't look like them and speak intelligently and tell them why they should be electricians and why they believe what they do. And I just thank IBW for giving me an opportunity. And so, I mean, I'm not a superintendent because I'm handsome. I know how to do this shit. So the labor movement played a big part in the labor movement not judging me for the way I look or being in a place that I wasn't working into nobody, but it gave me an opportunity in God's funny way of being able to reach hundreds. If you see somebody out there in LA and they look like me and they probably was doing that nonsense, more than likely I had something to do with them getting into the trades. And it ain't just electrical, I do all the trades because I know that it saves lives. And if the suspect is working, the victimology rate goes way down and the communities thrive with individuals who everyone knows that when they come down the street, close their door. I gotta live next to them too, but by me being a man of my word, because the union was a man of their word towards me, now I'm looking at, how many years I got to retire and I got a pension. I have yet to meet a blood or a crib that had a pension plan. So they don't offer those. But I got a lot of prison time and things of that nature. And so the labor movement was a blessing for me. And so for me, I'm always giving it out and I'm always giving back and getting out my comfort zone. I never stay complacent, I always stand confident.
Thank you, John. Anybody else that the three of you wanted to add on in relation to it? Otherwise, the next question we wanted to ask is why and how has labor taken leadership in the provision of training as a response to climate change, particularly the three of you in your locals and Bernie as well. But do you want to talk about sort of, Jermaine, maybe share with folks as a bus driver what you're seeing and thinking about long-term in terms of that career, and then also how that's translating into what ATU and the response is from labor, maybe the best way to answer that.
So I guess to kind of answer the question, right now with what we've been able to do, I think for, like I said a second ago, with labor having to say so in the training and creating apprenticeships in transit, I think that's going to be a gateway for us to be able to lead to being able to transition, at least for me, I'll tell you my fears, transition bus operators into other types of fields with everything coming along from electric buses to autonomous buses. I think this is a great gateway for the union to be able to now train their members. With the apprenticeships that we got going on with the coach operator, for me, I'm gonna be honest, all I wanted to do was drive. After I left, after Numi left, I vowed I just wanted a job where I can go get a paycheck. I didn't want to be involved with anything outside of just driving the bus. But with what the union has done, we were talking about it earlier, and I think a big part of it with Janice. What the union now has to do is take on the role of being able to offer more to its members than just protecting their jobs. It has to offer a way of career pathways for them to be able to move them from entry-level jobs to other jobs that are paying more and that require skill. And so for what we're doing right now with the pre-apprenticeships, and especially with what we're doing with California Transit Works, we're being able to take what we're doing in San Jose and now be able to talk with AC Transit and talk with Golden Gate and talk with Stockton, to be able to work together to create these career pathways that didn't exist before, and for them to be union-led. And that's the big part about what I do. Everything that we put together, the classes that we run over 35 classes a year. We register over 200 apprentices a year. That is all done from the union side. It's done together in the partnership with the agency, but I really believe programs like the one that I'm part of have to be union-led. They have to come from the workers. I know the industry drives what the new demand will be or what the new industry will be, but that work has to be taught, trained from the union membership for it to be accepted. So like for me, if it wasn't for another union person teaching me or telling me that I had these other skills, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I would probably be out on the bus, picking up somebody's kids or picking up somebody's grandparents, and I would be okay with that. But I've bought into that what we're doing now with these partnerships is really going to be the saving grace for, at least for me in my industry, as far as driving. So.
Bernie?
So this is, I guess, where we get to the training programs. I gave you a little bit of background the first time around. And so the challenge was really, we knew that there were a lot of sustainable energy technologies coming. Solar was the one I was hired to help on originally, but we could see that energy efficiency and other things were coming. And so the question was, how do we prepare our workforce and our contractors? Because you can't just do one side. If you train all the workers and they're all excited about doing some new technology and the contractors don't buy into it, they'll never get a chance to do it because the contractors won't go after the work. And if you just train the contractors to go after the work, but you don't have the trained workforce, you're not going to have it either. So I consider myself very fortunate to be in the Labor Management Cooperation Committee where we work with management and labor together because you really need both sides of that equation. So we're faced with what do we do to prepare for this? The first thing we looked at, of course, was solar, where we were already behind. So we had to create a training program. Now, I've passed out literature on 3 of our training programs, and you'll see that there's no solar training program here. And the reason for that is we were too late. We did train our people for solar. We trained thousands of electricians and contractors, staff on solar, but you don't see a training program or a certification program because we were already behind the 8 ball. There was already something created called NABCEP. I don't know if you know what NABCEP is. It's the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. And if you don't know, it's probably because it's not labor friendly. NABCEP was created by the non-union industry, and it is a shallow training program. And here's the killer. They train non-electricians to do electrical work, and they certify them to do that. So we were too late on solar in California. We did train our people, but we didn't have the opportunity to really challenge it because NABCEP was already entrenched. And so we had to, at the same time, convince our people that they needed to take the training whether the work was there or not. So how do we do that? Well, we talked about the low voltage fiasco. We talked about the fact we were already behind in solar. What we had to explain to them, and I think this is critical for all labor unions, is that if you wait until the work is there to start your training, you've lost it. And you've not only lost it because the work has started and you've got to get your training program together and it takes time. That's not the main reason you lost it. The main reason you lost it is because of something called subject matter experts and policymakers and thought leaders who create the standards and the certifications that drive the industry. When you're late, you're not at the table. And our former Vice President, Mike Maury, used to say, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And that's where we were with solar. Now, we did catch up pretty well on utility sales solar, and we do all right on large-scale commercial solar, but we lost all the residential business, and we lost a lot of the small commercial business. And that was one of the things that we used to convince our people, you can't wait, you can't wait. But it's still a battle. Every day, we still debate with our members, IBW members and contractors, about not waiting. You have to go forward. And in every one of these training programs that we created, we've had to have that debate. And not everybody buys in. But I'll tell you, no matter what trade you're in or what union you're in, if you wait, you lose. He or she who hesitates is lost. So we created these 3 training programs. The first one we did was CalCTP. And the reason this happened is while we were doing solar training, I was appointed to an advisory committee to the PUC, and I found out that the next big thing after solar was going to be energy efficiency. And we looked at that as an electrical industry and we said, what's our biggest opportunity? Well, of course, it's lighting. And so we created the California Advanced Lighting Controls Training Program. And make a long story short, because I don't have much time, that was about 9 years ago. Today we have over 5,000 members who are trained and certified in CalCTP. And even though our installation program is not required, having a couple thousand installers trained and certified put us in a position to convince the state of California that we should be one of the only 2 entities in the state of California that was authorized and certified to train and certify acceptance testers. Acceptance testers do what it says. They test lighting control systems so the owner will accept them. So we now have a couple thousand acceptance testers working, and they're CalCTP trained and certified, and we have 10 times more than the only one other entity that's doing it. So we have 90% of that market. That happened because we created this early, and we got a lot of people working on it. And then we saw the EV market coming, and this was back in 2011 when there were very few EVs, and most people said the work isn't here, but we did it anyway. We created the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program. And I'm going through these quickly because all of you have the brochures, and you can read the details when you have time. We created this program, and a lot of people laughed and said, oh, electric vehicles, it's going to take years and years and years. Well, it has taken years and years. But by starting early, what has happened is we positioned ourselves to be the subject matter expert. And when the Department of Energy decided whose program was going to go on the DOE site, it was EVITP, the only program that was on the DOE site. When Smart Cities got involved, they had it on their sites all over the country. So in California specifically, what I can tell you is that when the utilities wanted to get into the EV charging business, they went to the PUC to get an authorization, a license to do it, and they were refused. We then went to them and said, if you join with us, and Johnny Simpson, you here? Johnny and Andy Bird from San Diego get the credit for this. They went to San Diego Gas and Electric and they said, if you want some help and you want to go back and with our help, maybe we can help you get the authorization. And that worked. And then the other 2 big IOUs in California, PG&E and Edison, went with our help. And this right now, those 3 utilities are putting in 11,500 charging stations. They're all being installed by signatory contractors, and all the electricians on the job all are required to have EVITP certification. That happened because we were there early and strong. And finally, energy storage and microgrids. This is our latest program, and it's the same basic idea. Energy storage is coming on fast. We started a few years ago to develop this, and we have developed it. And you can see on the front that we're working with all the biggest standards organizations in the country. The National Electric Code, NFPA, it's led by Penn State University. And you don't see any IBW or NEPA logos on this flyer. Does anybody know why? No. It's pretty simple. Utilities, government agencies, big corporations will not spec something that's labor only. But when it's all inclusive and it's open, they will consider it, and they have done it with these other programs. So if it's not exclusive, then why is it an advantage to us? Well, the simple answer is because these programs are really tough. They're very challenging. They have a lot of strong eligibility requirements. They're difficult, and the exams are really challenging. So yes, there's some non-union people who get through these programs, but they're the very best. And most of the people who hold the certifications are our members.
So you're hearing, I think, Sean and John in a second, what we're referred to this morning is capturing the value of the investments, right? That it's that intersection between policy and the investment in the skills training really taking place. So Sean, do you want to talk about the labor's role in leadership there in training? I don't know where things went from the initial, maybe with your community allies to springing it on the larger membership of things, but go ahead.
Okay, so with the grant, you know, it's a beginning and an end. So when the end of the grant came into play, because we had our community allies along working with labor, we convinced the utility to bring the program in-house. And so we have it. It's been a permanent program, and so we've been doing it since then. The other portion that we have is now is solar, and that's why it's to have the employees, to have labor and management working together. We have them all together. Our community allies, we talked about solar, and we talked about the HITE program. We found out that the majority of the program when they were doing the home improvement were only going in areas that were affluent areas. Nobody else was taking advantage of that, and that's when you have to go out to them and convince and have those partnerships and the community organizations that's in there and talk to them so they will talk and have it. And now that has turned all the way around. The other thing is the solar panels. One of the things that we found out with our partnership in the community is that people wanted their utility bill to go down, so they were hiring the contractors that were out there and they were getting lousy work done and they've been left with a mess. So by us working together, that is coming into the utility, and our UPCTs will be working with the journeyman in order to do that work. But a lot of that, if you don't have the community involvement and have them go into the community, because everybody was getting the same mailings, but only certain people were getting it. And we kept hearing that only certain groups were taking advantage of these programs, and we kept telling the utilities, but we had the community come in at the table with our joint labor management committees, and that's what took us over to say, it wasn't just labor saying this is people that pay utility bills, this is your customer base, and this is what you're seeing in these different areas. And that makes a big difference. Our training is the best that is out there. Our journeymen, we make sure that they have the training, we make sure they have the safety training to come into play. But the other thing that we make sure that everybody has and make sure they understand, because every time you get shorter staff or people retired, management wants to cut training. That's the first thing they want to cut is training or make it a shorter period of time. We hold steadfast against that, and we're able to show a lot of stuff from the communities of people that have gotten lousy work that is out there. So we uphold that labor portion of it. But I can tell you guys, you talk until you're exhausted. And every time you have a new management team to come in, you have to start over again. And I'm like, hey, look at this video that's over here, so you catch you up to date. So this happens all the time. But one of the things about having the program and getting people in the community to be Water and Power employees, they're now marketing the program. And they're marketing it in their communities. So now you see a neighbor that I used to just say hi to, or they just bring in their groceries, and now they have a real job. So if they can do it, that's the believing part that I can do it too. Because we went to school together, we sat at the same thing, or we used to hang out together. So if they can turn their life around, they can. And we have everybody, you can have a pass in the history, you can have a pass, all of our UPCTs, I can tell you, I've seen CSI and the whole 9 yards. We have just about everything, every crime that people could have committed in their younger life. And I can tell you now, they can testify to you, they never thought they would have a job, and they're doing excellent. So you can change the C, and my thing too is the people also that are just C students that just gets by, don't do anything bad, but just stay there, are not the A students. We make sure that they're included in this process as well, because a lot of times they get left out. You get the people that have histories and are not attending school, and we have programs for them, and then we have the gold star ones, and in the middle, you lose that group. So we try to make sure that we're inclusive of everybody in the program. The training is crucial, and so they have to do training. We have CBTs, what we call is computer-based training. We give everybody a laptop. You don't have to go and buy one out. We loan out laptops in our community. And then we have regular DWP employees that come and volunteer to help tutor as well. So we have tutoring in our program. And one of the training to make sure that we get what we're supposed to do is that we have a letter of agreement. So there's DWP employees that are taking out their jobs to become trainers. And you have to enter into a letter of agreement. So number one, you understand what your job is about. And number two, you understand our vision, that we want to help and lift other people up. It was hard with the journeyman. My husband was a lineman, and you know, some of the linemen, you have to be crazy working outside anyway. But he'll tell you that I'll say that. But that was the hardest batch that I had to deal, because it's like you come up through an apprenticeship program, you come through a certain training, and now you're just saying, we're just gonna give it. I said, no, you gotta teach the trade. And one of the things that I told them, I said, all of you guys are getting up in age, but you're gonna want that return, that pension check. And if we don't have anybody that's coming through that you have taught that trade to, what's gonna happen to the utility? And so we had to do a lot of education in-house as well as with the management. So a lot of times it's not just the management team you gotta bring on board, you gotta bring some of your union members on board as well. And then add the community with it. So it's a good program, training, we keep it in there, but every time management gets ready to stop training, because we have that community partnership, we're at the board meetings. They will come up and talk about it. But if you don't have that combination group together, because those are the ratepayers, so they will listen to your ratepayers. So that's one of the things that we do.
Labor leadership, taking leadership in the division of training. Okay, from what I see, what we done at Bernie, so that we put out, we are the best trained now. So all that work that we lost, that's okay. We got it back, and we're getting it back now. And now what we're doing is we're not relinquishing power. It's got to be 100%. I remember when he's talking about it, we were at 12, 14%. Now we're at 60. And so now out there on the jobs, the first thing we did though was our leaders and the labor, they went and got the right politicians, and they went and put their money and resources behind the right politicians, got the right policies. So now it doesn't even matter if you're non-union. All the non-union do is like get 100 calls a day. Everybody want to come join us because all the projects are PLAs. So it doesn't matter that you're a better electrician than me. You need to be union, champ. And if you're not, I don't know what to tell you. I can help you if you want to get help. But some things that they have to do. I tell people it's a process. So I got to be drug free. Do not let, because marijuana is legal, fool you. That is the trick of the trade. So now in the community, the reason why you're not working, you got to dirty drug test. People get that. And then also in my community, the reason why you don't see a lot of the stuff she's talking about is because if I don't own my home, it has to the person that owns the home. And if they don't want those solar, if they don't even live in the community, you just rent. Section 8 and all that stuff. You can't get that stuff on the roof, it ain't your house. That's why the ownership is so important. And we talk about this stuff and try to empower individuals to do it. But I think our leadership did a fantastic job. And now, you know, everybody talks about solar, but the key to solar is battery storage. I don't understand battery storage. Solar now does me no good. So we got that now. And we train, and a lot of our experts, including myself, even though I'm the boss, I still got these trainings, we do it, and we stay ahead of the curve. And now what we're not doing, we're not relinquishing power. We're not saying, well, that's just a little data wire. No, anything that got a wire is ours. That's all it is to it. You like it or you're going to get rolled over, one or two. That's how we're doing that. So now we are taking control of our destiny, and we are absolutely, either you going with us or you get rolled over. And that's just how it is.
So John, I'm gonna stay with you then. Wearing your Morrow Meadows and your 11th hat, what are the actual kind of changes in technology that you're seeing in the industry, and then what are you guys doing around skill training? Well, give folks some examples of sort of what you're seeing in
those 5,000 individuals you're talking about. We have a lot of acceptance testers that work for us, but they're also like our foreman, general foreman. I'm in FPA 70 training. All of the leaders are, and so we are doing things to make sure we stay sharp. We don't stay comfortable. And so what the Morrow Meadows Corporation is doing is making sure that the leaders and everybody from the leaders on down is trained in this. and it's constantly repetitive. And then they're getting these projects, like for instance, I'm about to do a Lucas Museum, it's $2 billion. But the project is 95% late. What does that mean? How do I put a light up without it being seen? That's what museums are. And it's Title 24. Title 24 is very complex. But guess what? Non-union can't do that because they just go to work and go home. We gotta go to work, we gotta go to school, we gotta do Saturdays, we gotta do classes like this. And so they push that. If we don't do this, we're not running work. And so that's what they innovative at with it. And so I might not be a rocket science in it, but I understand what's going on. And I got my paper, if somebody say, you got this, here it is right here. And we renew and we keep renewing. If you don't run work. And that's how Moore Meadows is doing it with Local 11, to where we stay ahead. We got some of the sharpest individuals. They 2,500 men strong, men and women strong. And so some of the sharpest individuals come from Moore Meadows.
So you're doing lifelong learning.
Absolutely.
It didn't end when you journeyed out.
Oh, no, it couldn't, because I wouldn't be a superintendent if I did. There's no superintendent out there that don't have most of this training. None.
Okay. Thank you. Sean, what are some of the changes that you're seeing in technology and innovation there at DWP and relative to reducing greenhouse gases and water conservation, and what are the kind of skills changes that you're seeing that you guys are ultimately hoping that your members get either through the pre-craft or apprentice program? Yeah.
So we're watching what the department is doing. They're a little slow. One of the things that contractors are good, but the department, we're getting them where we're going to do the work ourselves. One of the things that happened, and it was somebody speaking earlier about meter readers, and they had to change the job. Well, we were sitting at the table at Water and Power, and they had a big building. Well, it's not that many people from LA, but anyway, they had a big building problem that they had out there, where they ended up having to pay customers back. And we sat at that table with the contract, and I told them, you have this contractor do it instead of us doing it in-house. It's going to be a big problem, and you're going to pay a long time. And that came to fruition with it. So our people, we're still hiring meter readers where everybody else is transitioning because of the legal stuff that we have in play. But we're watching them, and we're watching the jobs, and we always keep our eye on the ball, our workforce and the aging workforce that come into play. But with solar, we're on it, home improvement, and we weren't going into the customer houses. They used to contract out that work. So bringing a lot of that work in, doing the training, bringing the training in, and we do training all the time. It's like what is coming up next with solar. Our JLM came up with a training that was, we sent them out and they did train the trainer. We do a lot of that inside, but we're watching the utility and we're going to partnership as those different phases come into play. But we're not going to contract out the work. So if they're doing it, we're bringing the work. We make sure that we bring the work in. And even with engineering, we tell them, they're like, we don't have enough. I'm like, what do you need in order to get it done? So we tell people, you're going to have to go back to school because you need to be here. If you want to retire and get a pension check, this is what you're going to need to do. And so that's educating the members to do it. And sometimes you're going to need some outside, but it should be the exception, not the main rule that comes into place.
Bernie, you statewide or California, Nevada, are there other technology innovations or changes taking place that you wanted to talk to, either the Lynn Johns or other things you're seeing?
So really, you have to see technology in renewable and sustainable energy as a conveyor belt. It never stops. At one point it was solar, it was training for solar, that's old now. And then it was electric vehicles. Well, we still have to do it, but it's not new anymore. Energy storage seems new to a lot of people, but this has been going on for years. So, and there's more coming all the time. And there's some real challenges with these technologies beyond just the training. I've already talked about, we see the need for them and we build training programs and certification programs, but that really is just part of it. Because if you are seen as Rust Belt dinosaurs and not as leading edge technologists, they're not even going to talk to you. Even if you have the training, they're not even going to talk to you. So a lot of this has to do with starting with the training and getting it, but then also changing the public image of who we are and what we do. And I'll give you an example. When I was first hired 11 years ago, and I was from the solar industry, and I was asked to work with LA NECA and Local 11 on solar training, one of the first things I did was I went to some solar meetings in Silicon Valley, because that was, at the time, sort of the heart of it. Now it's moved beyond Silicon Valley, obviously, in a lot of the production is in China and other places. But at the time, the technology was being developed in Silicon Valley. And I went to some of these meetings, and what they talked about was that this was a brand new technology, it was new skills, it was different, and that they had to create a whole new workforce because this was different. They didn't see it as electrical work. They saw it as new technology, and they were talking about creating training programs to train people. And they weren't talking about electricians. They were talking about bringing people in and training them to do this. That's the whole NABCEP thing. So we not only have had to train in all these things, we've had to change our image. And I'm talking specifically about electrical, but it applies to all the trades. You not only have to train, but you have to convince people. Now we have this reference in electrical where we say our JATCs, or Joint Apprenticeship Training Centers, are the best kept secret. Well, and it was sort of the inside joke. But it's no joke, because as long as your training centers are secrets and people don't know what we do and how we do it, it's not going to benefit us. So one of the things we did was open up our training centers and bring people in and show them what a great job we were doing. And then it was 5 years of training, and it was like a college degree, and they had no debt when they graduated, and they could make money while they went. There's all these things that they don't know about. Even the Republicans love this stuff, you know? So, and then what we did is said, well, we have to walk the talk. So we spent a lot of time and effort to convince our committees, first in Northern California and then in Southern California, that some of our biggest training centers should be zero net energy buildings. The first one is the one in San Leandro, and if you haven't been there, I encourage you to go and see it. It's a 46,000 square foot building that was built originally in 1982, that we completely rebuilt and is certified by the Department of Energy as a zero net energy building. And we even changed the name of it from our Alameda JATC to the Zero Net Energy Center. Okay? And you can find it. If you want to go on your phones or your computers, you can find the website and see this building. It's miraculous. And it has changed our image. And because we did in Northern California, we decided to do the same thing in Southern California. And the LA Training Center in Commerce, the Electrical Training Institute, is now called the Net Zero Plus Center because it also has energy storage as well as being net zero. And it is more than 3 times as large. It's 142,000 square feet. And it's a retrofit. These buildings are phenomenal buildings. And they not only help us train all of our people, but they changed our image completely. Because we've had hundreds and hundreds of groups come through there. Not just labor people, business people, all kinds of groups come through. Lawyers and architects and mayors groups, and you can't even name them all. And what that has done with these training programs and the promotion and the zero net buildings, it has changed our image. We're not considered the Rust Belt dinosaurs anymore. We're considered leading edge technologists. And I don't hear anybody in Silicon Valley saying that solar is a new trade anymore. I don't hear that anymore. And I don't hear them say that energy storage is a new trade, because we're ahead of them. We started this before they even started talking about it. So those are some of the benefits, and I think those are some of the challenges with technology and the way we in electrical trade have reacted to it in California and to that.
Gee, you want to talk to them about driving a bus these days and or fixing them? What Santa Clara and other transit agencies are facing at this point, or seeing changes in technology and the skills needed?
Yeah, I guess I can. I guess for our industry, for public transit, we're way behind. We're not part of the conversation when you're talking about new technology and innovation. We get what is handed down to us. So public transit isn't going out saying, hey, we want to create buses that are X, Y, and Z, or going to do, we get the technology that is I guess, provided to us. one of the things from listening to the three people talk before me, and I'm amazed by it. I think the good thing about today is that I see that our industry really needs to learn from other industries that are getting out in front to make themselves relevant. I mean, be honest, how many people today took public transit here? How many people took Uber and Lyft?
Walked.
How many people walked? Some people didn't raise their hands, so I still don't know how they got here.
Drove a car.
But it's true, if you listen to everything that's going on in technology, it's always about what's going on with Uber, what's going on with Lyft, what's going on with electric vehicles. That's not that industry, even though it's my industry, it's not being driven by public transportation. One of the best ways that we can affect greenhouse gas is getting people into public transit. And public transportation agencies, they don't do a good job at that. If you look across the country, our numbers are down, and we don't see them going up anytime soon. So at some point, the federal dollars and the tax dollars that we're taking in, they're going to be allocated to services that cost less and actually do what they're supposed to be doing. If you take a look at some of the bills that are passed, I saw one where there was a bill passed for providing free transportation, public transportations to students, but there was no dollars attached to it, right? That was an instant way of being able to affect greenhouse gas and actually use taxpayers' dollars to help taxpayers get to something that they're already paying for. So if public transit isn't involved in the technology that is in their own industry, then obviously on the labor side, we have no input on what's going on. And where we're behind, because I'm sitting there getting ready for this summit today, reading all these different bills, and I'm like, okay, you know what, maybe as a bus operator, I can transition into the electrical field because I see there's money put into the electrical infrastructure to get here and hear my dreams, so I'm behind on that, right? And I see from this meeting today, one of the things that, you know, what's unique with what I'm doing with these labor management partnerships, I've been really heavy on the union side of being part of the training, and now I see I got to use the other side and say, hey, we need to have a seat at the table on these technologies. We need to have a seat at the table on dollars that are being advocated to ride sharing and being taken out of public sector. Because if we don't, what is our future as an agency? What is our future as a transportation union? I'm just completely mindful. Like, you know, like I said, we sit around, we talk about all these different things that I could possibly do later on with my career, and I see they already have it locked up. So, but I think this is something that we're going to have to definitely do more of being able to share information, and that's what I like about the HRTP grant. It allows for, you know, different industries to hear what's going on in other industries, everything from transportation to longshoremen to hospitality, now to electrical, to where maybe we can sit down and work together to be able to train labor as a whole and not just confine it to just sectors, I guess.
Yeah, so he's referring to the high road training partnerships that Sarah White was talking about earlier, of which California Transit Works is one of them. Would you just tell people a little bit about what CTW is and where ATU and the transit agencies are trying to go with it a little bit?
My honest opinion, I think CTW is going to be the saving piece for labor and transit. And the basis behind it is giving workers a voice in what's going on in that industry, at least in the training that we have right now, from everything from coach operating to how to become mechanics. You know, not exactly sure what's going to happen with bus operators, but I do see the increased need for electromechanics versus diesel mechanics. And so to have that in transportation is amazing. I go pretty much all around the country and a lot over the state of California, and I talk to other agencies and other locals where they have no say-so. They don't get a chance to sit down and have input on the training. Or one of the things I was talking with a guy from AC Transit, bus operators are the #1 people that can tell you why people aren't riding the service. They can tell you why a schedule is late. They can tell you why people aren't connected. But they have no input. No one comes to them and says, hey, please tell us how we can make our service better. And I think what CTW is doing is it is showing the employer that the worker has just as much interest in your success as you do. And not only do they have an interest in that success, but they are your #1 resource that is already on the payroll. You don't have to go out and hire someone to tell you why your service isn't working. You already have them. Right? They're already there. All it takes is for you to actually sit down, take the time and say, let's share, let's talk, let's see how we can make this better for both of us. And so working with CTW, like I said, I really believe that's going to be the future of the industry for transportation. Can't wait till we go. I can't say nationwide, but
No, at least for California, the goal is a partnership of partnerships. Locally for pieces. John, I'm going to come back to you here, and I'm going to change the question I was going to ask a little bit. Was going to be in terms of access for the community and folks seeking access to good jobs. Kind of wanted to ask you, why is labor a good partner for communities responding to climate change, and as well as for those seeking good jobs? But also, I kind of wanted to ask, what else could labor be doing or do better in that access, in terms of providing access? But let's start with the why for you, or how has labor been a good partner for communities responding to climate change?
Labor is a good partner because it's the difference between having an apartment and owning a home. Just that aspect of it. If I use the facts, take the emotion out of it. But the part they need to do better of is that when I hear this young man talk about fixing motors and buses and things like that, we have that in Los Angeles Metro. But the problem is, and a lot of these labors are, they tell you we're going to have this, but then they got the little thing called every convicted of a felony.
what's that?
Well, if you're in my community, I know for a fact 2/3 of those individuals have felons. I can't work on that bus. And what happens is that even though we have man in the box, for some reason in trades, some at the labor side in some of these trades, the coordinators are the most important individuals. And if the coordinator might not understand what's going on in the community, and then this paper has a box right there, even though you're in my community, you tell me I have all this access, there's a policy that says we can't hire you. So when I hear words like county, public transportation, those exclude all individuals that everybody said they want to help. So the trades in particular, the iron workers, electricians, AC, piper, they pretty much don't, it just depends on what kind of felony it was. But those other ones like this, and clean energy and things of that nature, a lot of those entities, if you're a felon, you won't be able to work on them until they change that. And right now, and no one talks about that. This is why when they go into them cities, you see a lot of the young men, and I'm gonna say black men, because what'll happen is most people deal with the zip code and not the person. So they'll say it's local hiring, that might be true. But when I walk out there and I see 95% Hispanic, now I got a problem. And so they go to the middle, I lost 50%. That's because they treat the zip code and not the person. But then you go, how come I couldn't get in? Oh, well, you had a felony, right? And on these jobs, you can't have that. And so there's some growing that got to be done. And then also, like when he talked about, if the people don't have no, he said the people at the bus. What I look at that as is the fact that there's nobody in the community in a position of power in the decision-making process. If you're not in the decision-making process, and the people that don't live in that community while the buses is going, man, listen, they don't give a damn. That's why it's so important, not just go to work, but get in part of the process. So that I understand what's going on around me, and then rise up to a decision-making process while you say I'm not the meal, but I'm part of the table, part of the sitting at the table. And oftentimes in the community, that's what gets missed. Everybody want to go to work, no one wants to make decisions. But when decisions get made, most of the people that make the decisions don't live in the community. So you go on a project that got local hire, the local people are working, but the decision makers, none of them are within a 15-mile radius of the project. So they don't eat there, they don't sleep there, they don't spend there.
That's right.
But they make decisions down there though.
That's right.
That is absolutely no bueno. And this is why it's so important to not relinquish power. I can go live anywhere I want to in the world, but I'll be damned if I give away. Listen, if they come to my community and say, we're going to build a highway, they ain't going to tell me what to do. They're going to come talk to me because I own my house. That's so key. Ownership. We're on the job. I'm not just a journeyman, no, I'm the superintendent. So I can lay somebody up, I got say-so in that. Can nobody come in and just tell me, make local hire seem like it's a dirty word? A local hire just means what it means. Take the emotion out of it. If I'm a Woodland Hills, it's still local hire. Local means local. But people try to associate that with less than. And a lot of these pre-apprenticeships and that get money, they support the zip code, but not the person. So for me, it's organic. And I just believe that labor has to really look at the bottom tier and look at that down there, and this is why it's not going up to the top. Oftentimes we keep looking at the top and just say we got a lot of good stuff going on, but when I go do the eye test, I don't see people of color or women. And I know what it's from, but unfortunately, if I'm a woman, I got to go out my comfort zone and rise up, and I got to do some more women, I got to go empower some more women. I don't care what it takes. Same thing in my community. I got to go out there and get myself uncomfortable, and then when I get out there in the field, don't give nobody the tool to cut my throat. Because I'm gonna show up on time, I'm gonna work hard, and I'm gonna be confident in what I'm doing, just not be lazy. The reason why they're not talking to the bus, because ain't nobody from the bus in the community in the position of leadership. And so for me, labor, that's what labor gotta do a better job of, but labor still have a door for an individual to come to and at least eat. And then from there, it's the politics of it after that, and understanding that part right there, that I believe we just gotta do a better job at.
Sean, thoughts?
I think we have to do a better job, especially women in non-traditional jobs when we came into that area. We got to have more support, and we have to kind of reorganize because we have it separated by different groups. Whoever has that group has male and females, and you need to be able to relate to what the issues are in the workplace. And so we're trying to get better at that. We're going to have to scale up on it because there's a lot of people that want it, but we need to talk about what the issues that they're dealing with in the workplace. It's easy to say that you can put the boots on and go out there and do the job as well. But there's certain things that come up into play. And some education we need to do on the other side, on the males on that side as well, to just let them know. And it's interesting because when I go out and talk to them, and I can't be everywhere, but when I break it down to the grandmother and their daughters, they get it instantly. But they don't get it when it's in the workplace, when they're coming into play. And just simple things, you gotta go to the restroom again. I mean, we have people that have medical issues, females, because of that, and then they don't feel comfortable that they can come and talk to the area. So I think it's a lot of things that we need to work on. I think, have we done a lot of good things, and do we have a lot of people, females in non-traditional jobs? The answer is yes. We got a long ways to go. And does everybody know what the ban the box is when he was talking about that?
Yeah.
That was one of my pet peeves. I'm like, this is just massing something. It's better than what we had.
Yep.
But the problem with ban the box is, at first, especially for the city of LA, it was on the application in the beginning, so you knew up front, and you were disqualified for taking the test. The only difference with ban the box with the city of LA now is that you get to take the test and you do well, and we celebrate that you pass the test, and then, so you got that high, and then they tell you can't get the job because of your background. That frustrates me to no end, so that's one of the things that we're gonna have to get fixed. I can tell you in our program, and only in our program, that I know for a fact that everybody that has had background challenges have been successful in getting a job, and that's because of the fight that we do individually. So that's one of the things that we have to get in there. And just getting out to the community, just like we said, get out your comfort zone. I've been in backyards, I've been in churches, we've been everywhere so they can see that you're real about it. If you're willing to I've been driving cars, so I wasn't on public transportation, but okay, I had to find out that, number one, I don't understand the bus schedule, so that's a job, it's a class you need to have. But other than that, I think if we work together with your community and work with labor working together, and you got that joint labor management is something that is real. And when I say joint labor management, I mean that you have a management co-chair and a labor. You don't have a manager chair and then the labor co-chair. That's not equal. Both of them are the co-chair, and when we have our JLMs, when you walk in that room, nobody has titles. Everybody is equal. And if you have that and they have that understanding, then you can start moving mountains. But we got a long way to go. But we're far enough, you guys. We're moving in that direction. So we got to, if we all work together, I think it's a good idea to have all the sectors come together and then talk about what opportunities, because maybe if you don't make it here, we can tell you about this job over here. We can tell you about another job, and we can kind of work together in that area as well.
Bernie, do you want to maybe talk to folks about although it's on hold for 2 minutes, the Energy Commission grant and automated demand response and the intersection with that to disadvantaged communities is something that IBW and NEPA are doing?
Yeah,
in relation to access?
Yeah, and I can talk about another program too at Detroit that I think is helpful. So what John's referring to is a grant that we're a part of. We're not the lead on it. It's the Center of Sustainable Energy is the lead, but we're a critical partner of this grant. It's a California Energy Commission grant for to teach apprentices and electricians and journey level electricians skills to install the critical communication hardware for automated demand response. And for those of you who may not be familiar with ADR, ADR is a system that allows the utilities to send a signal over the lines, which then connects to a building. Could be any type of facility, a home or a commercial building, an industrial building. That signal will then go in and talk to controls in the building. Okay? If that building has those type of controls, which are ADR capable, meaning they can receive that signal, they might be lighting controls, they might be HVAC controls, motor controls. The utility can then reduce the amount of light, maybe 15% over 5 minutes, and you probably wouldn't even notice it. Or they might raise the temperature on the air conditioning a couple degrees. They do this in response to the anticipation of stress on the grid. So it might be a hot summer afternoon when all the air conditioners are on and they're worried about grid stress. They need to relieve that. They want to reduce the load. They can send these signals out to customers who have agreed voluntarily to be part of this program of automated demand response. And it's a great concept. A lot of it was developed right here in the Bay Area at the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory. And it is being utilized, but not anywhere near as much as it should or could. So one of the issues is that we don't have a lot of people who are trained to install these communication devices. And these are the interfaces between the smart grid and the smart building. And the smart grid wants to talk to the smart building. That communication device has to be installed absolutely correctly, and it has to be done with utility authorized people and utility approved skills. And so this particular grant was put out to train people to do that, and it particularly wanted to bring in apprentices and we bring journeymen as well, but it was targeted apprentices from disadvantaged communities. So only our JATCs, which are located in disadvantaged communities, and our apprentices who, we have to have a certain number of apprentices in those communities to be eligible. Anybody can take the course, but they were the targeted groups. And we are in the process of delivering that training right now through that grant. So it's a great opportunity because those apprentices are going to be working on that type of technology, which is there's very few people, there's only a handful of people in the whole state who are authorized to do that. And when they become journey level electricians, they'll have that added skill as well. The other thing I want to mention in terms of reaching out to marginalized communities is I was fortunate enough to see a presentation a few months ago by our Detroit LMCC, our labor management group from Greater Detroit, southeastern Michigan. And they were talking about how they reach out to high schools to bring more apprentice candidates in, including a lot of disadvantaged and marginalized members of marginalized communities. And they had some problems. They tried a lot of different techniques and they weren't working very well. But they finally figured it out, and I think everybody in the room from all over the country was really knocked out about what they do. So they don't just advertise, they don't just put on videos on YouTube or send flyers out or emails. What they actually do is they go out to the high schools and they connect not just with the principals or the instructors, they connect with the counselors and they talk to the classrooms and they invite those members of the educational community, including the counselors, and some of the students into the JATC. And they have basically a career fair in the JATC where they show them the skills that they will learn as an electrician. They talk to them about the fact they get 5 years of education, tuition free, and that they're going to make money while they're going through school, that they'll graduate with no debt. And they open up their minds and their possibilities. And it's been extremely successful. But like I said, it takes more than just some emails or some notices or some videos. They really go out and talk to people person to person. They bring them into the JATC, and it has absolutely worked.
What Bernie's talking about, I did in Inglepool, we did in South Central. But the problem we had was LA Unified School District almost seemed like they don't want them to succeed. So what I did was, I went to the unincorporated areas like Compton and Inglewood, where I have to, and I had it's about relationship. I had a relationship with city council. Hey, listen, I don't want to do a career fair because career fair ain't going to do nothing but hand y'all paper and tell you you're going to email. And most career fairs, the people that come down there, they're from the community. I am. So what I did was, I explicitly got with the principal, got with the 12th graders and 11th graders, and brought them down to the ETI, had a relationship, and now some of the individuals are coming in, but we doing the same thing, but we had to do it a little different because LA Unified School District, when I sat in the room with all the principals and all that, a lot of it was anti-help this particular group of students. And I sensed that because I'm a pretty good receptor of things, right? And so what happened is, the guy says something, you like, dude, you either not hear what I said, you chose not to hear it. He wasn't listening with the intent to understand, which told me that you're not for this. And once I understood that, I just got with the people who was, and then we created to where now, like I say, on the week now, I'm tied in with LA Trade Tech, where we're doing classes on the weekend, but we go into those schools that get left behind, and we're telling them about the trades. We brought them down to the training trust, and they saw that, and they saw somebody from them that's from the community doing it. It do make a difference, but the people that are not used to seeing that, they have to buy in, because those are the individuals with power. And this is why I go back to the decision-making process, gain the position of power from your community. But if you're not, you have to have some of them saying, well, I don't know, and then, like I said, the counselor. Well, if I'm going to go talk to a counselor, and my man ain't even from the community, or a young lady not from the community, and all she keep doing is telling this dude to go to college, college ain't for everybody. And everyone knows that if you come from an urban school, even if you graduate, you can be below the bar. Because most of the time, the school is built in discipline. Everyone knows that. They ain't gonna say that, but they know it. So if I go in there with a trade saying, hey, I might not go to college, but here's the thing though, if I get through my apprenticeship, especially with the IBW, you can take those credits and transfer them anywhere to the university. Right? So then I can, and so for me, I just looked at it as, here's an opportunity for success instead of whining about it and saying, hey, look, y'all won't do nothing. No, I got the people that was for it, and we got them involved, and now we got them on the path of getting into the trades. I'm not even gonna worry about nobody who don't want to help us. We're just gonna keep going until you catch on or whatever. Just keep doing it. So if they're doing Detroit, we're doing in Los Angeles, and in the most hard-hit areas where the education seems to be second instead of first. We're in those areas doing that, getting young men and women, especially the women, because that is just a shame how there's not enough women out there in our trades, and it's only because they probably feel that they're not welcome. And it shouldn't be like that, because they can do it too.
So, what John said about the attitude of the educators is really critical.
Yep.
Because most educators are telling most students, you need to go to college, you need to go to college, you need to go to college. And it really isn't for everyone. Not everyone wants to go to college. There are people who want to work with their hands. There are people who want to go in the trades. But they're being told, don't do this. That's for losers.
Exactly.
Go to college, go to college. And so one of the things that I think we all have to do in the labor movement is get this message out to people that this is a college education. It's equivalent to a college education. and you make good money, and all the other things about no debt and everything else. And I think there's a great opportunity now, because everyone's talking about the cost of college and how high it is, and the debt load that you have when you graduate. So people are more susceptible to that message. And if you can reach them now, and talk to these educators and tell them, look, stop telling them, right? Just tell them directly. Stop telling everyone that they need to go to college, because not everyone does. Some people need to work with their hands, and they get their own kind of college education. It's called the trades.
Jermaine, did you have anything you want to add in terms of how worldwide labor can be a good partner in responding to climate change and working with the community?
Yeah, I guess for me, well, I really looked at the question you gave to me yesterday, and I really couldn't understand it until the day when I heard Richard say, labor's job is to ignite the flame of injustice and not contain it. And I think one of the things that resonates with me is we have to do better on the labor side of engaging our communities to let them know that, hey, your tax-paying dollars aren't being spent on jobs that's going to benefit you down the line. I look at some of the jobs that are going to be created in the public transit sector, and how you're saying certain people from certain areas, they do pay taxes, and those jobs aren't going to be there for them, and they're not going to be there for their kids. And so what we need to make sure is that we're engaging from the labor side, the communities, and letting them know that, hey, you have a voice in how your money is spent, and you need to know that if your money is spent this way, does it benefit your community? Because if it doesn't, then what's the point of it? Or you at least need to have a voice. And I think one of the things that, I'm still kind of a baby, 37. But I look at a lot of, I look at how labor used to be years ago, and how if there was something going on in that community, it wasn't just the people of the community, it was also the unions in that community that was part of it, who were out there marching, who were out there making sure that everybody was represented. And I think that's one of the things that labor needs to get back to doing. We can't just look at our industry and stay where we are and say, okay, I ain't gonna lie, if you don't know, bus operators get paid good. It ain't a low-paying job. You're talking about a union bus driver. It's a good paying job. And so what happens is we don't always get out there in those fights in those communities because it don't directly affect our paychecks. Or it's not hurting me any. But we are servicing areas where if they're not riding, or they don't have a voice, or their money isn't being spent in the areas where we work, then eventually it affects us and our jobs will be gone or taken away. And definitely when you're in the public sector, you need the community on your side. Yeah, your money comes from them. And if they're not on your side, I think a good example of it is Muni. Muni used to have a thing in their contract where they were the #2 paid operator in the country, even if they wasn't in the contract year. And the people took that away. And so for me, that resonated with me earlier today with what Richard said and what we have to do as far as the labor side of engaging communities going forward.
Okay. We got about 15 minutes left. I have one more question, but I think I'm going to leave it and give you guys the opportunity to ask these folks questions. Are there folks who have questions?
I got one for
What?
where I sign up. they have, for me, I've been sitting there. How do, not
Become an electrician?
Yeah.
Where do you live? In San Jose?
You told me you had 3 more years before I could steal it.
Yeah, no, I guess my question is, for this group is there a way that you can take what you're doing and be able to share that with other unions to be able to empower them to kind of take those same steps that you guys are already taking to cement yourself, not only at a local level, but it sounds like at a state level?
Well, I got one for you. We are working with CARB, the California Air Resources Board, to help them decide to have all electric buses, zero emission, well not all electric, but all zero emission buses by 2040. And they're going to decide at the end of this month. And if you guys will come to Sacramento and help us, you're going to have some high tech in your bus fleets.
One of the things we did with CARB, because I was at a CARB meeting, I told you, you've never been in my neighborhood. CARB came to my neighborhood. And when they came down there, one of the things that we do is, even though I'm an electrician, I got other individuals in different unions, we're teaching them how to lead. And that's the key. Bus driver leading is leading. And it all goes back to position of strength. And how do I interpret this information and what do I do about it? And then who's willing to be uncomfortable? If I'm not willing to be uncomfortable, it's gonna be status quo. Somebody gotta shake it up. And that's what we've done, that's what I'm gonna continue to do. And it doesn't matter what trade I'm in, how do I effectively affect my community from a taxpaying citizen? When he said those are tax dollars, most of the individuals down there, I know in my community, it's a lot of apartments. And in Los Angeles, apartments don't equal mortgages. You take the money and put it down the trash. I mean, it just doesn't count. So I'm a taxpayer in one sense, but then I'm not an owner. And so it just makes it a bit of a difference. And then also going to those community meetings when they have the things in the community. Because I remember sitting somewhere, there was a bunch of gangs, we sat up there talking, and it was 5 people that walked in this room, and it was 50 of us in there, and 5 people determined to pay everybody that was in that room. I'm like, man, how did that happen? Because the 50 that was in that room didn't have a pocket piss in, and they was owners. That's who the constituents met with. They looked at us as gang members. And when you look at this gas, a connotation of less than. And so for me, I just never read where it meant why you let people label like that. Because, that thought process. And I think it's because I'm in the ghetto, I gotta live like that. No, my lawn is cut, my house is nice, I get up and want to go to work. And that's a mindset, behavior. And so when he's talking about the union, how can we help them? Behavior in the union. Those people at the top, they ain't know what they're supposed to do, get their ass out of there. Period. But see, like you say, if I'm making money and I feel good, it doesn't affect me, I'm comfortable. I can't be, even if I make, man, listen, sometimes when I go to the bank, I feel ashamed. And sometimes when I go, if I gotta go get some medicine or something, if I gotta sneeze or something like that, sometimes it breaks my heart because I know people don't understand what I have. And this is why I never, ever, if I'm better than somebody else, I try to always help somebody get like me. Because I do make a damn good living. But more importantly, how many other people can I get to make a living with me? Right? And it starts at the ground level. If you don't have a ground game, nothing else matters. No policy will ever change that if the ground game ain't tight.
Well, we did talk this morning, you heard from a bunch of folks about the issue of job quality and its relationship to equity. And maybe Jermaine and John, could you talk a little bit about what an electrician and a bus driver, what makes those good jobs compared to, say, non-union jobs in the similar non-union?
It's like,
what's the difference between you and a non-union electrician?
well, first of all, it's going to be my knowledge. Second of all, my safety orientation. And third of all, that paycheck. and my benefits. Because for me, every day that I work, I can retire and I'm gonna make damn it the same money or more retired. If I had, I mean my daughter's grown and I got grandkids, but if I had 10 kids and they all needed heart surgery, I wouldn't have to pay for that because of what I put in and what the contractor put in. And the bigger difference is part of respect. Non-union get a lot of get disrespected. And what happens is they fall for the okey doke. They're comfortable, so they pat them on the head, tap on the back, tell you you're doing a good job, and hand them a key to open up the gate, make them feel like they call them lead man. I'm like, man, what does that mean? What does lead man mean? And so a lot of those individuals, when they get to us, because it's like anything, they tell that spooky story. It's like anybody that grew up with a black man like me, most black women, you put their purse on the ground, they're gonna kill you. But they're gonna say, if you put my purse on the ground, you're broke. When in reality, you're gonna be broke if you just mismanage money. So it's the same spooky tale in non-union. Oh, if you go to the union, you will never work. And I told him, I said, the question you have to ask yourself, if we never work, how the hell all these buildings got built? You wouldn't know. So if we never work, how did the Staples Center, the USC, and how did that get built? You didn't do it, we did it. So if I don't work and it turned on, I'm the greatest man alive, I'm a goddamn musician. You know what I'm saying? And that's the difference. It's respect, pay, and the knowledge that I have and safety. That is the most definite difference between me and non-union.
And United Year 11, I know, has a unique, something that they do with non-union electricians. Do you want to talk about that for folks and tell them what the union does to...
We bring them in. We go out there and get the best of the best.
So they
yeah, we
he's being modest. They have an open house.
Yes.
And they bring folks in who I
Yes.
think they're probably waiting for the union to eat them alive when they
Yes.
walk in the door.
No.
And then they actually get,
Feed them.
yeah. So tell them.
Feed them really good. We talk to them really nice. They see the institution, they're like, wow. Next thing you know, brother got this thing on right there. Next thing you know, it's a good recruiting tool, and all of them are working. The ones who are good, and they see the difference. They realize they got lied to. And so we don't even talk to the contractor. We just get the ones who are really good, and we just, as a man, it's like having taking a young lady on a nice date. You want to take her to the nice place, you want to talk to her, say everything, get her on over to your team. Same thing. You don't want to say, hey, I need for you to get over here on this team. And then when they get there, we treat them with honor and respect. And they see the difference on how we treat them. We don't bring them over there and treat them like third-class citizens. No, you want us now. And now you're part of the wolf pack. Like being part of the wolf pack, you get to eat just like we eat.
So labor is the opportunity, even though those folks are working, it's a higher opportunity.
It's just a better way. And I tell the dude, I say, look, you live in an apartment, and you've been there 15 years. Look at that house. There you go, right there. So it's all good.
Gee, you want to talk about bus drivers, union and non, all the sort of the difference?
I think our biggest is going to be tradition. I think that's it's one of the things that when you come into this profession, in the unionized bus operator, there's tradition that you have to follow. There's a standard that's set. There's people that you hear about who are legends, who done 25, 30 years, million miles, 2 million miles. There's a high standard when it comes to a professional coach operator. And when you go out and you talk to people, and you just ask about bus operators, they kind of put us all into the same group. A charter bus operator is the same as a public transit operator. No, it's a different. There's a level that you have to live up to. When I walk in, there's a certain way I got to dress. There's a certain way I got to talk. There's a certain knowledge that I have to have. There are certain things that I have to do. And we purposely do that. When I drive, I feel like I'm the best driver in the country. Nobody's going to get you there as safe as me. Nobody's going to get you there as fast as me. Nobody's going to know the things that I know. And then you times that by a million bus operators who work in public transit. We all feel pretty much the same way. And that comes from a foundation that was laid by operators before us. My mom used to always say, you got to know your past if you're going to know what your future is, or to determine what your future is. And so that's one of the things when you come in, you're coming into a career when you work for public transit. If you talk with anyone that works at a charter company, most likely they came from a public transit agency where they didn't make it. And they're here for a little bit, they don't see themselves doing this long term. I'm gonna be honest, if it wasn't for the union seeing something in me to be here talking, I could have drove for 30 years and wouldn't have a problem doing it. Because I look forward to being one of the legends that, they talk about later on. So.
You're gonna be an electrician though.
Yeah.
Change, you got it.
Electrician bus driver.
Only a second job.
Any questions that folks have? Yes.
Is any of this work that is being done on the apprenticeship programs, is any of that funded through employer contributions or aside from the grants and stuff, or any agreements on collective bargaining?
Yeah, we have it for, we have it for training and development, training and safety at Barton Power. So it's actually, we negotiated it and it's 25 cents. 25 cents for training, 25 cents for safety. It's 35 cents altogether, and it comes out of the employee's check, so we can have it, yes. And we voted on that, we voted on it, and we have it, so yes, it is working.
Every hour we're paying to our apprenticeships.
Yes,
Off my check.
members pay into it.
Same for us. We get grants. The agency also provides money for the training as well. But the union, and that's really something new on the transportation side, to have union members. We pay 2 cents an hour every hour that we work into our training program, and that's big. That gives you a seat at the table inside the agency. If you have money that you can come with, and you're not sitting there waiting for the employer to give you the money, then you have a say-so and ownership of your program. I think that's a big piece.
And as you're seeing, in both the state and at the federal level, there's investment in apprenticeship.
Yes.
The reality is that American business is not used to investing in its workers. And the difference in this equation that you'll see from all of these and other unions that are getting involved in apprenticeship and training is they're the advocates. They're the advocates for getting this stuff created and making the employers invest in the workers themselves. And that's a really big difference.
So John, for all these programs, to answer your question, if you're a member, whether you're an apprentice or a journey-level electrician, there's no charge for this training.
All of the apprenticeships are free to the member.
I can speak to for electrical. And those and what's it's been said already, but once again for electrical, those funds come roughly half from the contractors and roughly half from the.
And if you're in a union and you're able to have a JLM, you guys, when they have those contracts, read those contracts and ask why. Why do we need it? And then set standards so the next time that they come in, if it's a 5-year contract, so they don't need it for the next time. But you gotta ask questions, just do not sign off on it. We brought so much work in because they've been used to contracting out work. So please, please, if you have the ability, read it. I know sometimes it'll put you to sleep, but half of the stuff you already have the membership that can provide that work.
So our training centers are called joint apprenticeship training centers. It's not because marijuana is legal now in California. The joint means jointly funded from management and labor.
Any other questions? Then can we thank these guys?